Hello everybody, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast and welcome to my Match Week 35 League One roundup. Lots of games to get through today. I've actually picked 5 instead of 4. We've had that many interesting games to break down. We're going to be looking at the tactics of the games. We're going to be looking at how both teams approach the game, what it means for these sides going into the rest of the season, some star players, how the games panned out, and much, much more. Of course, if you enjoyed your team's action last night, maybe you didn't enjoy it, maybe you did enjoy it, maybe your team won, maybe they lost, maybe they drew. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you happy with yesterday's League One action for your side? I want to hear from you. I'll be replying and responding to all of those comments, like I said, in the comment section below. Also, if you haven't subscribed and you like the content, please hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 900 subscribers, eventually trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That road, of course, can be made much shorter by you hitting that subscribe button. There's a red button. Hit that one. There's also a bell next to it as well. Make sure you hit that one as well. That way, you'll be notified every time I go live, or the recorded episode, just like this one. Let's not mess about. Let's get straight into it. Leave a like as well, but I'll let you watch the episode before you make a judgment of whether or not I think this episode deserves a like. Anyway, let's get straight into it. We're going to start off with Crewe Alexandra against Oxford United. So yesterday was quite a strange night, quite an emotional night from an Oxford perspective. Of course, the passing of Joe Beecham on Saturday, absolutely awful news. Of course, all of our thoughts are with his close friends and family at this time. An absolutely devastating piece of news to hear that we've lost him. One of the best players I think Oxford United will ever have. And again, he wasn't just an amazing footballer. He isn't just a club legend at Oxford United. He's also an absolutely brilliant guy. I never got to meet him, but I know people that obviously did get to meet him, and I also wasn't old enough to see him play football. I wasn't old enough to watch him play. But again, from the people I speak to and the people that I'm around all the time, I did get to hear wonderful things about him, and I think on Saturday it's going to be even more emotional because obviously it's going to be the Kassam. There's going to be some amazing tributes to him on top of the amazing tributes we've already had. I think it's going to be really quite an emotional afternoon. But yesterday, again, still very raw. So, yeah, and like I said, to round up on that, all of our thoughts are with his close friends and family. What can only imagine it is one of the most difficult times, if not the most difficult times of their lives. Absolutely awful news. Awful. And the sad side of life, really. But in terms of football, which again is absolutely nothing when you put it into perspective, but that's what we're here to speak about. Crewe 24th in the league, bottom of the table. Oxford United 4th in the league. So going into this game, you felt that we were favourites. We definitely should win this game from an Oxford perspective, that is. But complacency can easily kick in. I think you can go into these sort of games very complacent and not I guess absolutely put everything into it and not win every 50-50 and not run that extra 100 metres or whatever it is because you think, well, they're bottom of the league. And that's something that, again, is so... It's such a basic thing that is always said, is you can't go in there complacent because you will end up dropping to a level in which, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, because they haven't been good enough this season. They haven't been very good on Tuesday nights either, and that's again something you don't want to hear when you're going into a game against Crewe on a Tuesday night. You fear of the jinx, and you fear that this is going to be the night that Crewe turn up on a Tuesday. Thankfully, it wasn't. I've got to be honest, Crewe weren't awful. I've got to be honest, Crewe weren't awful. They don't strike me as the 24th team in the league. I wouldn't say that they're the worst team I've seen play this season. Defensively, they are a little bit all over the shop at points, but going forward, they look dangerous at times. They definitely did pose different threats, and you were scared that if they went 1-0 up, it was a horrible game to come back into because they would try and sit back. So going 1-0 up and taking the lead was so important. So looking at league position finally there, you can see even though it's 4th and 24th, and there's 20 places between these two sides, you also know that this game can really and easily flip on its head, and you can have an absolutely horrific night. I think for Oxford, we made sure that didn't happen. And you can see they're looking at the momentum graph. Oxford dominated the start of the game. We were really good, really quick out of the blocks. But you fear that when we didn't get that goal when we were quick out of the blocks, it could easily turn on its head. You could easily go 1-0 down. You saw they had a spike sort of in the middle of the game. It was only one, but it was one big spike. They had a really good set of chances in that first half, sort of spread across it. Overall, it was a dominance from Oxford, but they had moments in the game, and you felt that if you didn't take the lead, if you weren't making the most of those chances, because we have gone into games and not taken chances and walked out of that game with real regrets. We talked about Accrington Stanley a few weeks ago. We had chances, we didn't score them. Accrington got one without to take risks. We committed men forward. Then they came back and scored 2-0, and it's game over. So in this game, you felt that you had to make sure you took that lead. And when you didn't take that lead, when you had those chances, and the more the game goes on, the Oxford fans, and I was one of them, sat there as I have been watching every Oxford game this season, and I was there last night watching this. I was going, we have to score in this wave, and it felt like we're having wave after wave, but you weren't taking those chances in those waves, and that's really, really quite frustrating. And you felt that as the game went on, Crewe felt that they could hang on that little bit longer and they could get a counter-attack, they could nick a goal. They had an amazing chance that second half, probably the best chance of the game, when they hit the crossbar. How that didn't go in from such close range, I'll never know. And the guy, I've forgotten who it was who did it, but whoever hit it, I mean, he's going to be kicking himself now that he didn't hit the back of the net, because it was a really, really good chance. I thought Offord as well, who they have highlighted as their best player, I thought was brilliant. Luke Offord for Crewe. So impressive at centre-back. And like I said, sometimes they were defensively a little bit all over the shop, not so comfortable. I thought Luke Offord really, really was really quite good. He was really, it was going to be a handful for them. Matty Taylor and Sam Baldock seem to be, creating a really good partnership up there. Two really experienced, knowledgeable strikers of the game. It was going to be so important for these Crewe defence to be switched on. They didn't look comfortable all the time. I thought Luke Offord looked a really, really experienced head. I'm intrigued to see how old is Luke Offord, 22 years of age. I mean, he won't be playing. I hate to break it to you, Crewe. I don't think he'll be playing for Crewe next season if they do get relegated. Because at 22 years of age, the captain, he looked an absolutely brilliant player in what was a team that sort of had glimpses of good, but unfortunately is shadowed over by, at the moment, a lack of ability. That sounded horrible. That sounded really harsh. I didn't mean that completely as the way it sounded. But you know what I mean. They're bottom of the league. Something must be going wrong. From an Oxford perspective, I thought we went with the same team. We didn't change the side that beat Charlton after we won that game 4-0. You can see the thinking behind Robson's decision in that. You can see that in the formation we played, back to the 3-4-1-2. I thought that was a really, really effective formation for Oxford last Saturday. I thought it worked again on Tuesday really well. And the one thing I love about this formation as well is you just do able on the counter-attack to provide such amazing ability and actual real threat. We talk about Gavin White in that area as well. Didn't think he had the best of games, and he did miss a really good chance. I don't know what that man's got to do to hit the back of the net. He's still looking for his first goal of the season. We'll talk about Gavin White in that area, the ability of the pace he's got, and he can take players on. He can feed past to Matty Taylor. He had an amazing game against Charlton. I think he got 4 assists in that game, and that was really, really effective for him in that position. Didn't have the best of games yesterday, but I thought he looked really, really good at moments yesterday. Again, not the best of games, but really, really thought he's really quite effective in that in that formation and in that system. We'll talk about the stats as well. Interestingly, they had more possession, Crewe, 52% possession across the 90 minutes. I think we probably would have had more in the first half. Yeah, second half, though, they had chances, they had moments. They probably had the best chance of the game other than the goal in which we scored. Arguably, their chance was probably bigger than the goal we did score. We had 19 shots, we did have more shots, and then we had more shots on target and off target. In terms of big chances, we both had one, we both missed one. But I thought generally a really, really intriguing game of football, really quite fascinating. And in the end, it was thankful that Oxford United didn't let that complacency kick in. We got a really, really important 3 points in this sort of game. And it's one of those games where you snap your hand off a 1-0. But credit must go to Crewe. I thought they were really, really quite good at times. They made it difficult for Oxford. They made the game really tight. They made it a gritty game. And credit has to go to Crewe for that, because it's not easy to make a gritty game against Oxford. I think in the end, we just had that extra edge, and I think that's what separates you from a lot of teams. But I think Crewe, to be honest, they definitely deserve credit. They weren't a team that I think should be sat in 24th where they are, and I understand that you can't play that every week. They did look really, really good at times, and I think they will come away quite disappointed about that. They probably couldn't get a point from it. Fair play to Crewe, but fair play to Oxford United. A really, really significant 3 points as we continue on our promotion hunt. 4th in the league doesn't move, but that gap now between us and that first playoff and that first playoff place, that's difficult to say, 6th in the league now does grow bigger, and that's really, really important from an Oxford perspective. So then next up, where are we going to go? We're going to go to, where is it here? Cambridge United against Plymouth Argyle. Now, again, this was a game that I think I predicted a draw in this game. I think I said 2-2. I knew Cambridge would offer something. 12th in the league, really quite good form. A win on Saturday, and now, of course, a win yesterday against Plymouth. And Plymouth will be really quite frustrated about this, because they're on a really good run of form, away from home against Cambridge, who are 12 and are enjoying a really, really quite good season. For Plymouth, though, they want to stay in the top 6. They want to continue pushing in the top 6. And to lose again yesterday, or again, not for a while actually, but to lose yesterday, really, really quite frustrating. I can imagine at Plymouth now there's a sense of frustration more than anything, because it was a chance, it was a real chance yesterday to get the 3 points, to climb up there and be joint on points of Oxford still, and again, do what Oxford did and sort of make that gap between that first playoffs place and themselves much bigger, so they have sort of that cushion, they have that safety barrier. Unfortunately, Plymouth, they weren't able to do that. They now only are still 1 point safe in that top 6, even though they are in 6th. It's a big opportunity missed yesterday from Plymouth, but fair play to Cambridge. They're enjoying a really, really quite good season, and you always knew they were going to pose a question. I didn't go for a draw for no reason. I knew that Cambridge at home, they were going to cause problems. They've won 11 games, they've drawn 11, they've lost 11 this season. Very, very consistent in that, but generally consistent in their inconsistency, really. But really, really happy for them to finish and get the job done, because they are enjoying a really quite good season. In terms of the momentum graph and how the game panned out, Plymouth had more of had some probably the larger in terms of how effective they were in the attacking in that attacking graph. I mean, Cambridge had some really good chances sort of before and after half time. They were the biggest spikes in the game, but certainly at the end of the game, there you can see it absolutely all Plymouth. They were trying to knock on that door, trying to get a goal back, try and make it nervy. And I've got to talk about the episode I did yesterday, which was every League One club's worst player so far this season. I've got quite a lot of stick from that video, I've got to be honest. And, I made it very, very clear it was based on the stats and were they misleading? I think the answer to my question is, are they misleading? Yes, they are. Jack Lancaster, I think I highlighted as Cambridge's worst player on paper so far this season, scored against yesterday. That's the same for Louis Thompson at Portsmouth, and the same for that Bolton lad, Kieran Sadley as well. He scored as well. So, to be honest, in fairness, you should be thanking me. I highlighted them as their worst player, and they've in the end come out and scored some really important goals yesterday. So hold fire on the stick I get on that video. I definitely deserve it, though. There were some questionable ones on there. But in the end, a really good win for Cambridge. Plymouth are going to be really disappointed, like I said, frustrated they couldn't make the most of a chance away from home on a Tuesday night. It was going to be difficult, but you'd expect them to win this sort of game. But fair play to Cambridge, really, really quite good. Continuing to enjoy a fantastic season. Fair play to them. Finishes Cambridge 2, Plymouth Argyle 0. Next then, we've got Sunderland against Burton. Now, I do understand this game was put on hold and suspended for a period of time because of medical emergency. I've read a few things. Apparently, the person is in a critical but stable condition. So, hopefully, fingers crossed, again, all of our thoughts and prayers are with this person, that they continue to recover and hopefully, in the end, are going to be okay. Awful news happening yesterday, and the game quite rightly suspended and put on hold. But in terms of the game, we'll look at the league table first. I've been very, very honest about Sunderland, I think, in the past few weeks about how they simply have dropped off, and they are searching for a first winning in quite a long time. And I felt they could get back to winning ways yesterday. I felt they would do. I did a predictions episode on Monday, and I felt that they could. I was wrong. They couldn't. They drew this game, and Sunderland at that point does get them back into the playoffs. It's still very, very tight. 1 point ahead of 8th for Sheffield Wednesday, but like I said, 3 points from 4th. It is so tight in and around that area. Really, between 4th and you'd probably say 10th and 9th. Really, so tight. And so points, even though they're not the best of results, do help you, and they do push you into these playoff places. And it did just that for Sunderland last night. Now, although it has got them back into the top 6, a sense of frustration at Sunderland. There's a few dilemmas that I think are really sort of causing Alex Neil and that football club problems. I think the system is one thing. I think there's a real confusion at the moment. I think with the way that Sunderland are trying to play these games of football. I want to have a look at this game, of course, in more detail. That's what we're here to do. Not this one, this one. And again, I will touch on Burton as well, because I think Burton will be walking away from this really quite happy. It seemed quite a tight game in terms of individual players and their average ratings. Both teams having an average of 6.9, which is really, really quite rare, but also quite fascinating. Sort of one player for each team not having the best of games, everyone else having fairly average to good games. So again, you can see there. I think Burton will come away from this really quite happy. They go to Stadium of Light. They get a really, really, in the end, significant point, and they'll be really happy with it. From Sunderland, there's going to be a sense of frustration because they couldn't get a win. They couldn't get back to winning ways at home. And like I said, even though it's got them into that top 6, you still feel there's a sense of frustration at Sunderland. And I mean, at the end, they scored their goal in injury time, and they almost, you'd say in the end, they rescued a point, and they did rescue a point. And again, that's really, really quite frustrating. For some reason, there's no momentum graph for this game, which is really, really quite annoying. I don't know why that is. Can I refresh it? Will there be one appear? And there won't. That is really, really annoying. We'll have to come back and look at the stats. The stats on there? They're not on there either. I think it's because the game, obviously, took a while. Because obviously it got delayed for a long period of time, so they haven't even still got the stats on there just yet. But I think we've still got enough to say about the game. I think from what I would say is I think Burton will come away from this really quite happy. Now, like I said, I don't really know how the game panned out in terms of chances, because I don't have any of the stats here. But what I would say is they scored in the 90th minute, Sunderland, and although Burton are going to be happy they come away from a point, they're going to be quite frustrated they couldn't hang on in that, those last seconds of injury time and come away with 3 points at Stadium of Light. And again, Sunderland will be relieved they got something, but again, you still feel that there's something holding them back. They've got a really good set of players, and I no doubt that there's a really, really good set of players there, but you can't be saying that forever. You've got to start turning the quality in that squad that we know is there into points and into 3 points. They got a point today, but in terms of 3 points, because 3 points are what are going to give you the momentum, and ultimately the points are going to get you into that top 6. And like I said, also confidence as well. Confidence, momentum. You get those first 3 points. You don't know how significant that's going to be and how you can build off that. And I think that's really, really important. I think what Sunderland have also got to deal with as well is there's also that still sense of expectation. And I come back to expectation, and I come back to talk about something quite a lot with that. There is a sense of expectation, and you do feel that they do have that minimum expectation to finish in that top 6 and get promoted this year. Unfortunately, you're stuck at the moment, and it come back to that video I made when they first sacked Lee Johnson. First sacked him, they sacked him once, but when they sacked him a few weeks ago, I said, I think Sunderland fans have got to understand this isn't going to be a long-term thing, and I think they're going to have to understand that these points are so frustrating now, but hopefully with that long-term in the future, you can then end up turning these, if you can get in the top 6 now, what I'm trying to say, and then, even if you don't get promoted, just get in that top 6, take it one step at a time, because the long term, I think, is so important for Sunderland. And at the moment, they are going through this sort of short term pain, but you hope it is the classic saying, short term pain for long term gain. You hope it is that, but I understand it's really frustrating to sort of comprehend as a Sunderland fan, as a football fan as well. I think we all fall in that same trap. It's, you think at the moment it's the worst thing in the world. It's horrific. I do think that there really is hope there. There really is hope. I don't think they're a hopeless football club. I don't think they're completely at rock bottom. They're going for a difficult patch at the moment. But I think with Alex Neil getting back, actually now implementing what he wants to try and do to this football club, and then with the players beginning to believe, you don't know, a last-minute goal against Burton at home, that might be the confidence they need to go on and get a win on Saturday. You don't know how these different things can impact players and impact a football team. So really, really interesting. I mean, Burton are going to be frustrated, but also, they should feel really happy about it. They got a point at the Stadium of Light. They're going to be frustrated because they conceded in the third minute of injury time. They couldn't hold on to a really important 3 points. For Sunderland, it's going to be really frustrated. They're going to be, first of all, relieved probably, but then also frustrated as well. They couldn't get more than 1 point and get 3. But they're back in the top 6, but they're back in the playoffs. And for Sunderland, that's really all that matters. So really, really interesting game to break down that one. But finishes Sunderland 1, Burton 1. So then, next game, what have we got? We're going to go to Bolton as they played against Lincoln City. Here we go, 3-1 to Bolton. I predicted this game spot on. First prediction, I think, probably all year that I've got right. And it finishes Bolton 3, Lincoln City 1. Now I want to have a look. They've got the mental graph. I've also got the players here as well. We'll look at the league table first. Let's have a look at where both sides are. Disappointing result again for Lincoln City. I felt they could really push on after their January transfer window and the players they brought in and the changes they made in terms of their recruitment. Hasn't been the case, really. It really hasn't. I think that the short answer to that is it just hasn't really been the case. We look at these last few games for Lincoln City and for Bolton, almost polar opposite in terms of consistency. Is that 5 wins? Yeah, 5 wins in that sort of patch of Lincoln City games. They beat Morecambe, they beat Plymouth, which of course was a really good win. But they've lost games to Bolton 3-1. They lost to Doncaster 1-0 at home. They got a red card in that game. They lost to MK Dons. They lost to Burton. They lost to Cambridge United again at home as well. So they really have lost some really quite, as I put it, frustrating games. And games they probably would feel that they would win. Not enjoying the best of seasons, Michael Appleton and Lincoln City. They've got Sheffield Wednesday coming up as well, so that's going to be interesting. They have got, though, Gillingham at home on Saturday. They'll be hoping they get back to winning ways and sort of sort themselves out in that one. But again, that won't be easy. We'll talk about Bolton. They've been on a fantastic run. They lost to Burton, but I said it after that game they lost to Burton. Make sure that doesn't derail your season. Go and get a win against AFC Wimbledon. They did that, 4-0. Brilliant stuff. And then at home to Lincoln City. Really important there was no slip up there, really. And they made sure they didn't do that. They got the 3 points. And what I would say now for Bolton fans, because I understand I've got quite a big Bolton audience, so if you are a Bolton fan watching, let me know in the comments down below. What I would say is, I really, really think you've got a chance. And I always thought you got a chance, but I really, really do think you've got a big chance. That's what I'm trying to say. I think you really, really have got a chance to finish in that top 6. I think Bolton, and I'm going to say this right now, Bolton really, really could push into that top 6 because teams around the area, the Wickhams, the Sunderland, look at the teams in 6th and 7th. Look at their form here. 6th and 7th place teams at the moment are not in good form at all. Both of these teams sat in 6th and 7th haven't won a game in the last 5 at least. So it's really, really important that for Bolton, for Ipswich, for Sheffield Wednesday, and even your Plymouth and Oxford, you keep winning those games, you will eventually suffocate those 2 teams that aren't winning games. Now, obviously, you need to hope that Sunderland and Wickham then don't go and get some points, but they're dropping points at the moment, and this is a brilliant opportunity opportunity for teams that want to get in that top six. They can really sort of push in and really sort of snap up the places that are going to be offered to them. We look at Bolton. I say this again, I probably will put this in the title of the episode, but I think Bolton really do have a chance. They didn't let that Burton game derail this season. That was a big tick. I don't think that's going to be a tick that people speak about, but losing to Burton on a Tuesday night is disappointing. It's frustrating. But as long as that doesn't affect you, in the long run, you've still got games to play, you've still got games to win, and you're doing that again, you've got every chance of finishing that top six. And that's going to be really, really exciting for Bolton. I thought they were absolutely brilliant yesterday. And I want to look at these stats as well. You can see they're absolutely dominant from Bolton. Yes, Lincoln City had their moments. They had sort of a patch in that first half and patch in the second half. But ultimately, when Burton attacked, when Burton were on the front foot, they looked absolutely brilliant. 0-0 at half-time, but the second half, 4 goals across the game and Bolton scored the all-important 3 to win the game. You can see there a really, really, really good win for Bolton yesterday. And I was really quite impressed with that. New man Morley, they got from Rochdale in January. Got, of course, their man of the match. But Kieran Sadlier, a player that highlighted as Rotherham's worst player so far this season, who's now gone to Bolton. There we go. Thank me later. And we look at the stats as well. 51% possession to Bolton. They dominated the ball. They had more shots. They had more shots on target, off target. The same big chance across the game. But unfortunately for Lincoln City, they missed their one. But look at it from this, again, take the game away from it as well as also taking the game with it. Big contradiction there. Really, really significant. Really significant. We look back at this league table now. We look at Bolton sat on 51 points. Only 4 points now, so it's 5 points, separate themselves from Sunderland, who are in 6th. But like I said, how important is it that Sunderland and Wickham are dropping points? They're not winning games of football. They haven't won a game in the last 5. They're continuing to win games, and that's really, really quite interesting. So they've got to keep on their tails. They've got to keep pushing. They've got to play catch-up, really. But ultimately, so impressive, Bolton. They're continuing to win games of football. I think with and they've got big games coming up, but I think this could be a bold statement. I think if they don't get in the top 6, they will be so close. I think Bolton will take it to the final day to get in that top 6. I really, really do, because I think they're doing really well this season, and teams around them just are dropping points, the Sunderland and the Wickham. So really, really interesting, that one. But yeah, Bolton against Lincoln finishes 3-1 to Bolton. Very, very impressive Bolton, and a good 3 points of Bolton. A very significant 3 points for them indeed. Next then we've got Wickham against Wigan Athletic. I predicted Wigan to win the game. Not 3-1, I said 1-0, but a win's a win, sort of. We'll have a look at the league table first. Wigan enjoying a really good season. Second in the league, 66 points from 31 games in League One so far this season. Wickham, we spoke about how Wickham's poor run recently is going to benefit the teams like Bolton, also Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday, but especially teams that are pushing into that top 6. Now, unfortunately for Wickham, they fell out the top 6 after their defeat yesterday. They're currently sat now in 7th in the league, and their recent form hasn't been good enough, and I think there is a level of concern at Wickham. I think there really, really is, because they were in that top 6. They were in the top 6 for the majority of the season, and they're not. They now fall out of that. Of course, Sunderland's point against Burton means they did come out of that top 6. And like I said, it only takes really, and you look at Sunderland as well, it only takes till you come out of the top 6 for you to realise we're out of the top 6 now. How we're going to come forward, how we get back out there, because the realisation kicks in that we're not in the playoff places. So it'll be interesting to see how Wigan come back from this. In terms of the recent games as well, like I said, they haven't been good enough. In terms of Wigan, they lost against Sheffield Wednesday at the start of February, but since then, February's been a really good month for them. They beat Charlton, they beat Crewe, they drew to Rotherham, and then they ended up yesterday, of course, beating Wickham. We'll talk about Wickham's recent few games as well. They lost to Morecambe 3-2, lost to MK Dons 1-0, drew to Shrewsbury, drew to Lincoln, drew to Cheltenham 5-5 in that unbelievable game, and of course lost last night. And to be honest, losing to Wigan is nothing to be ashamed of, really. They're second in the league, a fantastic side, but the losing results hasn't been good enough, and this result again yesterday for Wickham is going to be really quite worrying, and there's going to be some real concern at the football club. And I think what's also going to be quite concerning is that momentum graph. It looked like it was the Wigan show, really. I mean, at the start of the game, it did look like Wickham had their moments. It looked like they were really quite dominant in the game. But really since then, 3 spikes really across the game for Wickham. Everything was Wigan, really, and it was almost Wigan's game to win. We look at their chance. I mean, they scored their games quite, in quite quick concession. It was about 3 goals in 10 minutes. Callum Lang loves scoring on Tuesday nights, and again, he did that yesterday in the 78th and then the 82nd minute. We look how dominant dominant Wigan were in that game, you saw there, really, really quite significant in the way they played. And, although it was 1-0 at half-time, really their goal came in their second spell in that first half. Didn't really do anything for the rest of the game. And in the end, Wigan comfortably won. So we'll have a look at the stats as well. It says Sam Vokes was their best player, probably because he scored. He didn't score, he got the assist. Sonny Kaikai scored for Wickham. In terms of the stats as well, in terms of possession, we know Wickham don't like to have a lot of the ball. They don't really play as a possession-based side. And for Wigan, 68% of the possession across the 90 minutes. First half, 72%. Second half, a little more even at 65%. But still, that first half, 72% possession. Even the second half, really, was 65% possession. Still a domination across that. But we know Wickham don't play a lot of the ball. So it's not too much of a surprise, really. We know that really isn't the way they like to play their football under Gareth Ainsworth. In terms of the shots across the game, quite the same, to be honest. Both with 10 and one with 11. So Wigan slightly edging that. More shots on target, more shots off target, unfortunately, for Wickham. In terms of big chances, though, 4 big chances in the game for Wigan. The concern again will come at Wickham. And if you don't have a lot of the ball, if you're not a possession-based team, that's okay. But can you go and make any big chances from it? Can you then go and capitalise from creating some chances? Unfortunately, not. Interestingly, captains and Joe Jacobson on the bench for Wickham as well. I don't know whether or not that's maybe a tactical decision. I know he didn't have a great game against Cheltenham. That didn't look like he had the best of games there as well. But Joe Jacobson has been a brilliant player for Wickham over the years, so I don't really know what's going on there. But other than that, though, I mean, a really, really important win for Wigan. They sort of climb away from the pack between sort of almost 3rd and 6th, really, and try and push Rotherham as far as they can to the top spot and to the league. But other than that, really, really good win for Wigan. For Wickham, like I said, this worrying run continues, but I think they're going to turn this around. I do have that feeling. I do think they'll end up finishing in that top 6. But like I said, teams like Bolton, teams like Sheffield Wednesday, like Ipswich, like Plymouth, like Oxford, these teams that want to either get into the top 6 or continue in that top 6, they need to look at the sides like Sunderland and Wickham, make the most of this bad run, and make sure they go and win these sort of games. And in the end, Oxford won last night. Ipswich dropped points. I think they drew to Cheltenham 0-0, so that'd be quite frustrating there. But either way, a really, really good night of action last night in League One. Some really exciting games of football. Like I said, if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, you want to see more of this sort of content, we do this after every single match week. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you happy with your team's performance yesterday? How are you digesting these set of results? If you haven't left a like and you think this episode warrants a like, please hit that like button. It's free and easy. Also, subscribe as well. On the road to 900 subscribers, eventually to 1,000 subscribers. When we hit to 1k, I'll be over the moon. We won't stop there, but it'll be a really big milestone to hit. So please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It really would mean the world. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you all very, very soon. Take care.